Hi there, everybody. Mike Petras here, back again with another educational video for this week, where we're going to go ahead and discuss another common question that I get all the time. Mike, what is new construction like here in the Treasure Valley? We'll get to that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back after the break here. Again, my name is Mike Petras. I am your star realtor of Star and the Treasure Valley, here back with another educational video to where we're going to go ahead and discuss what new construction is like here in the Treasure Valley. But before we do dive into that information, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell so that you're constantly in tune to all the videos that I come up with every single week that range from a variety of different topics. And if you are thinking about making a move here to the greater Boise, Idaho area, or what's known as the Treasure Valley, please click on the description link below and you can see a copy of my free relocation guide that you can go ahead and download. I'll give you all the information that you're going to want to know before you decide to make the move. So let's go ahead and let's start discussing a lot of this, but I want to talk a little bit about my background here before we start going into this information. Before I became a realtor, I was one of 7 and still am one of 7 certified master inspectors in the Treasure Valley. So I've been around and I've been in the inspection industry for over 15 years. And before then, I did work for a couple of major builders too as well. And there are differences that come over states and different authority having jurisdictions, which we'll kind of get into to be able to discuss what's going on. But in the whole degree of things, we will dive into that information right here. And I'll be able to kind of lay it out for you that what you're going to be able to expect from every single builder that you basically come across around here. Well, let's get to that right now. So builders out here in the Treasure Valley, they really generally all build the same. There's not going to be a huge ton of difference when it actually comes down to the construction of the house itself in terms of the bones, which is what I call framing, and basically the materials that you're going to get, all the way ranging from roofing, the foundation styles, et cetera, and the plumbing that they put into your house, which is all going to be PEX out here. And they all build according to generally the minimum requirements that the authority having jurisdiction will let them get away with. And the authority having jurisdiction is going to be either a city or a county. Now, they're going to go ahead and they're going to adopt code, the codes like IRC, NEC, UPC, which is all different codes that really kind of cover all the different systems that are going to go into your house. But the authority having jurisdiction, so the city or the county that's in charge of that, can pay attention to some rules within those codes and decide not to pay attention to some other codes in those rules. And I have seen that as I went around as a master inspector here in the Treasure Valley, to where some followed some additional rules that other cities and counties didn't follow. But in the grand scheme of everything, you might be saying, well, Mike, are they going to chop off, certain really important rules or things that, might create my house to fall down, or I'm going to have some serious issues with, or et cetera, et cetera. And the answer to that is no. They do have to follow these minimum practices in order to make sure that you're going to get a solid and strong house. And that's something out here in the Treasure Valley that you really should not be worried about. If there's going to be, an issue structurally, it's usually going to come from what's known as differential settlement. But that's usually, there has to be like an issue with the soils. Maybe they didn't do their 95% compaction well enough. But most of the time out here, especially in the Treasure Valley, this is flat farmland. So beyond just kind of simple grading, they're not really they are compacting down and making sure that your soils will be able to handle the load of the house for sure. But it's not just going to kind of fall apart on you because they cheated something along the lines. Keep in mind that the cities and counties still have their inspection throughout their phases. So when they're done framing or they're going through the framing process, the inspectors are going to show up, making sure they're using the right lumber in your walls, the right lumber in your partitions, the right lumber on your decks, the right lumber when it comes to your flooring. And when they place it all together, they have to get signed off on that. Same thing when you're going through electrical. They're going to take a look into that and make sure that they sign off that the electrician did his job correctly. So it's not like there's nobody making the checks and balances as we kind of go through here in the Treasure Valley, even though they tend to follow, what I would consider the minimum requirements according to the authority that has the jurisdiction, so either the city or the county. So the majority of the homes that you're going to find out here in the Treasure Valley are going to be on a raised foundation. And that is really due to our high water tables that we have around the Treasure Valley. They are going to also be recessed into the ground. And what does it mean when I'm recessing the foundation? It means basically they will grade, they will pour your foundation, dig down a bit, and it's usually going to be a two-piece foundation to where they're going to go ahead and install your footing, and then they're going to install your stem wall, and they're going to backfill. Now, when they backfill, they do have to lay a modified bitumen tar deal so that water cannot penetrate into that wall or just completely suck in to the concrete, because we all know concrete's a sponge, and concrete out here that they do use is rated at 3,000 pounds per square inch, or at least that's the minimum code that they have to put in. So that way the concrete's not going to spall out over time. But the moisture barrier that they do put on the outside is to prevent water from being able to soak into the concrete and make it a quicker issue. So a good home inspector, as they're walking around, is going to look and see if they can see the tar-based modified bitumen that they do put, or what's called damp proofing, okay, on the side of your foundation to be able to make sure that water's not going to just completely flow through. Now, the way they do build foundations out here is they do have a gap, generally what's known as a cold joint, because they're pouring at different sections between your footing and your actual stem wall. So one of the most common things, especially on older homes, if you're buying a resale, that you might see out here in the Treasure Valley is your home inspector talking about moisture coming in between that seam, which shows up as what's known as efflorescence. And efflorescence is a white, chalky, salty substance that sticks around to the concrete. And it's a very, very common thing out here in the Treasure Valley for water to bypass in between that gap eventually. Is it gonna ruin your foundation walls? No. Okay. But over time, of course, we all know that water is the best solvent on the face of the earth. And after years and years and years and years, maybe even hundreds of years, the concrete will eventually weaken, but it's not going to be something that you're most likely going to have to worry about anytime in the near future. So when they are building the raised foundation, of course, they are going to frame your floor out of wood. And what they're going to be using out here is actually just not your regular typical joist that comes from a mill. They will use and implement what's known as TGIs, or I-beams, or wooden I-beams. Not metal I-beams like you would see in commercial buildings, but or even industrial applications like, say, roadways, etc. You're going to be getting the wooden ones, which usually have either an LVL flange to them or a sawn flange, and they are very, very strong. Okay, and generally they're going to go ahead and depth them out at 24 inches on center, which is the maximum span that you can go with those joists. And to support those, coming from some other states, some people might be used to beams, posts, and piers. Well, out here, they actually build what's known as pony walls to be able to keep those up. And the pony walls have to be depthed out at so much so that they can support the weight of the floor across. Once they're done building that, they're going to go ahead and lay your subfloor, which is usually 3/4 inch tongue and groove subfloor, which is going to be OSB, which is actually OSB is a lot stronger than plywood as we hit the line. So your floor structure is generally going to be very, very strong out here if you do have that concern. One of the things that I used to always tell people, though, that moved into new construction as a master inspector would say, walk around your floors, because sometimes the way that they lay out the floors, they kind of don't design where you're going to put a lot of the weight in your house in terms of where you're going to place maybe your TV stands, coffee tables, couches, your weight, everything else. So when you do buy that new home, one of the things that I do say is walk around your house. If you get anything that feels like any more flex than usual, or what feels like a trampoline, or maybe you're knocking things off of your shelf as you walk by, that's definitely something that you're going to want to bring up to for your builder when you're in your warranty period. And we'll go ahead and we'll discuss the warranties out here and how they apply in the Treasure Valley. All right, so if you come from states like, say, California, for example, California had what was known as the SB 800, which really kind of held the builders to a whole different standard of what they had to do to warrant your home. For example, your house automatically, because of the Senate bill, had to have a 10-year structural warranty, 4-year electrical warranty, 2-year HVAC warranty, and it kind of goes on as, like that. But out here in the Treasure Valley, you actually get a 1-year warranty that covers the entirety of the home. Everything from structural, electrical, mechanical, across the board, even plumbing. And that's all you're going to get. So when people ask me, they say, well, Mike, should I get really a home inspection on a new build? Absolutely, you should, because builders are not perfect, and neither are the city or county inspectors that come to take a look at them. So I really say that it's imperative to know, because builders can make mistakes here and there that a really good trained inspector like myself would be able to come across and be able to give you a heads up on before you actually make the purchase. So that way you can go ahead and place it in there, and you have a little bit more leverage with the builders to get them to complete it before you purchase the home. Because sometimes what can happen is that if you take those after purchase and you say, okay, well, at least I know the problems here, let me go ahead and move it to warranty. All depending on your builder, it could lengthen the process to get the things that you need to have done. So I always say that it's a better strategy to try and get them to do it before the close of escrow. But some builders out here are really, really good. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to have them fix it after the fact. But the one thing that you're going to want to know, ask about, and look on the reviews is generally the response time that they go out to fix all this stuff. When it comes to cosmetic, some of you are probably like, well, what's the cosmetic like out here? Really, the only cosmetic warranty that you get, because let's just go back to California, for example, you had a 1-year fit and finish warranty. So if you came across cosmetic items within that year, the builder would have to come back and take care of it. But out here, it's your warranty, or I'm sorry, your cosmetic is only going to be covered really during your new homeowner orientation. So when the builder is walking you around and you're taking a look at your house and they're showing you all the systems, definitely bring a roll of blue tape with you, because if you see some cracks or nail pops, nail protruding, you see things that are, out of plumb, out of level, other cosmetic things like nicks or dings in your doors or the walls, that is your one opportunity to go ahead and tape that thing. And that way they'll write it down. They'll get it all done before you move in. Now that we've talked about the warranty and we've talked about the general construction of what you're going to see out here in the Treasure Valley, really the materials, as I mentioned before, that they're going to use are really about the same across any house that you're going to come across. The only time that you're going to find, differences in construction or materials that you put on the house, so actual building materials like roof cladding, siding, etc., is really going to be if you decide to go with a custom builder and you really know the code, and you have a really good structural engineer or an architect that knows how to more or less, support maybe different things for different applications that you have going on. So, but even if you don't, and say you go with a custom builder, the custom builder will still go to what the minimum standards are that the authority having jurisdiction asks for in terms of the overall building. So if you're knowledgeable like me, that kind of works out to your benefit. If you're going after, say, like a custom builder and you want to do certain different things, when it comes to the actual construction of the house and the materials that they're putting on it. Otherwise, you're basically kind of going to get what everybody else gets as it comes across, even with a custom builder. So if you're a contractor or you have the knowledge, it's something to talk about. But with custom builders too as well, the architecture is going to definitely change, because you now have that ability to really kind of pick, choose, and decide what it is that you want to put into your house. So what really then separates the spec and the track builders from one another? Okay, so again, the warranties are going to be the same that they have to abide by. The materials are going to be the same. What really separates the spec builders from one another, so CBH from Hubble, or from, say, even Toll Brothers or Lennar, is what they're going to actually be putting into your house. And what I mean by that is, what kind of HVAC systems are they going to put in a house? What brand is what I really mean. What brand of appliances are they going to put into your house? What kind of countertops are they going to put into your house? Backsplashes, everything like a toilets, are they going to be elongated or are they going to be short? What kind of flooring are they going to put into your house? Are they just going to put in, carpet as, say, to tile, or to different, engineered wood versus LVP, which is still all, Pergo, except for the engineered wood, which is a little bit different, sort of. But either way, it's really the attractiveness of what they're going to be putting into the house. Now, there's some builders out here that will kind of give you what I would consider a bare minimum and use, middle of the road appliances, or maybe even lower than the middle of the road appliances compared to other builders. And that is actually something that you can bring up. Now that we've talked about the warranty, and we've talked about, even though the home inspector, the general construction of what you're going to see out here in the Treasure Valley, really not his job to tell you, really, the materials, as I mentioned before, really good they are. Use, but I know that really that's about the one thing that I did for my customers. Any house that you're going to come across. For example, if I saw the only time that you're going to find, differences in construction, I would say materials was much better any day building Sunday than what you could get from siding, etc. So it's not really going to be, if you decide to go with a custom builder by your inspector and say, hey, what do you think about my appliances here? Do you think that they're structural engineer or kind of quality, or do you think it's going to be something that's going to last? More or less, of course, as a homeowner, maybe different things for different applications that you have going on. So it's but even if you don't have to maintain and take care of yourself, you will have to do custom builder will still go to on what throw into your house across the board. Standards are everything. Authority having jurisdiction. Keep in mind, your builder is for not in terms of the overall maintain your house. So if you're knowledgeable like me, that kind of works out questions your benefit, maintenance items, etc. Going after, I've definitely got some good information for you. You do want to reach out to me. Do certain my number is 208 when it comes to the actual construction of the house and the materials that they're putting on it. 7827. Otherwise, you're basically more than happy to kind of give everybody else general list as it comes across. Really good stuff. A custom builder that's going to let you know how to maintain. If you're a contractor, we come across knowledge and talk about the future. But with custom builders too as well, the architecture is going to. I'm probably going to go ahead and put it in the description for you as well. Have so that way ability to really kind of pick, choose, and decide what it is that you want to put into your house. So when talking about spec builders, one of the other major important things that I do want to talk to you about, and this kind of comes down to the warranty too as well, is going to be their customer service. How quick are they going to get to this, to your repairs that you need to do? And that's something that I definitely advise everyone that is looking at a new build is look at the track record of the builder. You can always find them maybe on Yelp, Google reviews, etc. Now, keep in mind, some of their reviews are probably not going to be the numbers that you're expecting, but keep in mind, it's also up to homeowner expectation of what they want out of the builder. For example, me, I'm a master inspector. So, I know that they do a good job, and I'm a little bit kind of more on the low key side, but there could also be some other homeowners that, really kind of, nitpick, a spec home. And a spec home, keep in mind, time is money. So they're building these things, as quick as they can, of course, with all the quality controls, that the authority having jurisdiction is going to make them do. Okay, so your house isn't going to fall apart on you, but kind of, take the reviews, really kind of read some of the goods, the bads, the in-betweens, and really kind of discern which builder out here is going to work for you. So now I want to talk about some of the systems that you're going to go ahead and expect, okay, on a new house. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the exterior out here. And let's just say we're talking about a spec or a tract home, because keep in mind with a custom, you could always decide, what kind of, say siding and roofing material you really do want on the home. So some of the most common siding that you're going to see out here is going to be wood composition siding. Wood composition is basically kind of like a wafer board that they compress. And basically what I call it is a generally glorified baseboard. One of the things that you're going to want to make sure that you do when you do have wood composition is you want to make sure that you definitely paint the exterior of the house when you should. Okay. And that's generally about once every 10 years or so. If you start seeing the paint really starting to fade, of course, there's better paints out there than what, spec and tract homes will generally put onto your house, because again, they're trying to save some money. So expect your initial coat of paint maybe to wear out faster than usual than if you were to repaint later down the road. But if you don't take care of your wood siding or your wood composition siding, water can get in between there and start basically kind of delaminating your wood composition siding. I do have wood composition on my house personally, so I know that's just something that we need to take care of. Some of the older homes, like say if you're buying a resale, all depending on where you're at, you can come across vinyl siding, and vinyl siding is not a bad product, but just don't break it. That's basically how that one goes. Some of you are like, well, what about stucco? Well, you might find an actual true layer stucco on some of the older homes out here. But if you do find stucco today, you're going to find what's known as stucco eaves or exterior insulation finishing systems, which generally have a layer of polystyrene behind it that helps out the R value to the home too as well. But it's not a full 3-layer stucco, it's a 2-layer stucco. But that's what you would find out here as compared to what you would get, like say back in the 70s or the 60s for exterior. Sometimes you can see wood shingles on houses out here, more or less if you're kind of going up north or anywhere kind of out in the woods. And of course, if you're going out in the woods too as well, you could come across even log cabin style stuff. But those are basically the general sidings that you're going to see on your house here. Wood composition being the most common. And another one, since the lumber shortage and not being able to get it, which is really cool if you do have it, would be what's known as Hardybacker siding. And that is a masonry fiber cement board, which is very, very cool stuff. So if you do come across a house that has that, that is just absolute bonus for you. Let's talk about plumbing that you're going to go ahead and find in our homes. So what you'll get is what's known as PEX, or cross-linked polyethylene, and it was the predecessor to after polybutylene after they had their issues. So they went into, and that's what you're generally going to probably get around the United States nowadays, because it's cheaper, it's more flexible, it's easier to work on for plumbers as they're doing what they need to do around your house. Your drainage lines that you're going to find are going to generally be ABS, leading into an SDR main pipe that's going to lead out to your street. The roof materials that they're going to throw on here is always generally going to be an asphalt style shingle. Okay. And that's a composition shingle too, if you want to get into the argument more or less. But generally they're going to throw a 30-year onto your house. And you'll see that, basically kind of around everywhere that you go look at a spec and a tract home around the Treasure Valley. Now, of course, if you are doing a custom built, you can always talk to your builder about maybe using concrete tile if you really wanted to go that direction, slate if you really want to go that direction, have the money for it. But you also see, metal style roofs out here a lot too, especially though, as you're going up into say higher elevations and more of the woods. But down here in the Treasure Valley, when it comes to your roof out here, you can guarantee that you're going to generally see your asphalt shingle being used. Some older homes, you might even, if you're looking for a resale, you'll probably still come across the old 3-tab. And, you know, the 3-tab at that point, I can probably say is getting near to ending its life expectancy at this point. And if you are looking at resale, keep your eye on that. And just make sure the bonds, make sure your inspector looks at the bonds, that there's not, you know, a lot of the shingles ripped off. If it has, then it's time to start, you know, considering a roof replacement. Electrical. So when we're getting into electrical, you know, that's the one thing that I can definitely attest to out here when it comes to the new builders is it doesn't matter which builders you get, the contractors that they have coming in and doing their electrical always do a really good job. The only time that I have, as a master inspector out here, or even, you know, back in my career, came across issues with electrical is generally if the homeowner was doing something and didn't really kind of know what the NEC was requiring to get that job done, or it was an older house and had some obsolete panels like FPE, or maybe even Zinsco and some of the Sylvania brands. But out here, generally, they're going to use Square D. That's generally the most common product that I see out here. Cutler Hammer would be another one that I see out here, but I've never really seen a new home builder that didn't have a good electrician, that didn't know the exact wire gauges that needed to go per amperage and do an absolutely wonderful job. So that's one thing that I could say is kind of feel comfortable about. But again, I always recommend an inspection to be done because they will make little mistakes here and there. Like say, for example, they won't hook up a 3-way switch correctly, like say for lighting on your stairwell, or maybe they reverse the polarity on a plug or two, or maybe they miss a connection, you have open neutrals, etc. And that is all things that your inspector is going to look at if they can visibly see it going across the house, because we know that if we're in the attic, we're going to have our insulation out here basically kind of cover up some of that wiring. But again, that's something that the city or the county, the authority having jurisdiction, their inspectors are going to want to see before the next phase comes in and say they blow over insulation. They're going to want to make sure that the electrician did their job correctly. Let's talk about insulation. So what you're generally going to kind of get out here is a little bit better than you're going to get in some other states, especially when it comes to, say, the load bearing aspect of it, okay, or your thermal envelope, okay, as we're kind of going across. And the thermal envelope would just generally be your walls. In some other authorities having jurisdiction, say out of state, their minimum requirements are around an R value of 19. Out here, you can almost guarantee that you're going to see an R value of 21 in your load-bearing walls, okay, so the perimeter walls that are coming across. If you're looking up in the attic, generally you're going to see a lot of mineral wool, which is a blown-in type of insulation that they're going to use, and that will hit an R value of 38. Now, I've had my things in the past with the 38 level, considering, you know, how cold it kind of can get out here, because the 38 is basically a minimum standard, or it's at the high end of the minimum standard. But, you know, of course, the more insulation that you do have in your attic, like say you want to jump into the 40s, because this still is a colder zone than what you're going to get in some coastal states and elsewhere, you might want to add maybe a little bit more insulation after the fact. But again, that is something that your builder is not required to do. Your builder will meet the minimum requirement that the authority having jurisdiction will allow. Now, if you're going into the crawl space, that's also going to be bat insulated in between, unless if they're going to be doing what's known as a conditioned space. If you want to know the difference between that, definitely give me a call. I'll be more than happy to discuss the difference between that with you and what you should be looking for. And your inspector should also know this information and be able to educate you about the differences between actually insulating and ventilating the foundation area or the crawl space, I'm sorry, or a conditioned space to the crawl space where they close off all that and then they draw from the house and leads out. Okay, so you can reach out to me or definitely talk to your inspector about that. But in terms of insulation as it comes around, we're doing pretty good here. So the one thing that it will help you do is keep your heating and cooling bills down to a pretty good minimum. So the last item that I do want to bring up here in this video is going to be mechanical, or your HVAC systems. So your heating and your cooling that you do have in the house. When it comes to mechanical out here, one of the things that your home inspector should really pay attention to, and that I advise anybody that asks me still in home inspection about, is watch the sizes of your HVAC systems. So, because out here, again, they will follow the minimum that the authority having jurisdiction will allow them to put into the house. So sometimes, and commonly, what you could find in spec and tract houses because of that is undersized equipment. So definitely have them check up the BTUs compared to the square footage, or have them check out the tonnages compared to the square footage when it comes to cooling, to make sure that you're getting the proper heating and cooling. Now, if you are undersized, like say on your heating, for example, well, then it just kind of generally means that your heating will have to run a little bit longer out here in order to heat up the house, or even on cooling, same thing. Okay, so what that just means is that, your bills could be a little bit higher as compared to if you had the proper sized equipment that does come in, that's supposed to go into your house. If you ever do have any questions about whether or not, or the home inspector brings it up to you about whether or not you might be undersized, the one thing that I recommend that you do is get what's done as a heat loss calculation, or what's known as a heat loss calculation, done by an independent HVAC contractor. At least that way you can bring it to them, and then you have something to go back to the builder with and say, well, let's go ahead and let's talk about this and getting something properly sized. But again, they are following the code. They're going to get passed off on that, even if it is undersized. The one cool thing that we do got going, here for us here in the Treasure Valley, is that we do have some of the lowest utility costs. Actually, we do have the lowest utility costs basically in the nation. The state of Idaho does. We're number one lowest. So our natural gas bills aren't terribly high. Our electrical bills are definitely not high. What I paid for from out of state, what my electrical bill cost out of state, covered all four of my bills out here. I mean, everything from waste to electrical to sorry, I apologize, but to my heating bills, etc. It was amazing. Water, it was amazing how low it was. So if you do move from out of state and you come here and you see that difference, it may not be something that's going to affect you too much, but that is the one thing when it does come to mechanical, especially as it applies to spec and tract homes out here, production housing, you could probably see a one size fits all that's trying to be put across all sorts of different square footages, which could create an issue in that deal. The other thing that you kind of want to look out for, if you want a really good even spread, because another thing that they don't really get into when it comes to mechanical would be the balance of your system. So sometimes they'll place your systems out in the garage, which means that all that air has to travel quite a bit of different distance, or they'll put in your attic and they'll put it generally centrally located, which is a little bit better. Okay, but if you ever have a question about balance, it's something to bring up to, I would say, an independent HVAC contractor, have them do their checks and balances to make sure where you really kind of stand. Because one of the things that I've seen the builders do is in their warranty checks is that they'll go ahead and close some registers to try and balance off the house, or they'll semi-close them. And that's really kind of just a hack, more or less, to balance the house, where a booster, might be a better idea to be able to balance the house better. But check your sizes is what I really want to get down to when it comes to the mechanical. And if you have any questions about how it's going to properly heat your house or cool your house, definitely talk to an independent HVAC contractor. Have them come out and do the heat loss calculation. So that way you've got something to go back to the builder to, and you can compare and contrast on what he was supposed to be doing when it comes to what the authority having jurisdiction was asking for. All right, everybody. Well, let's go ahead and let's summarize this whole thing again and kind of just really break it down to the things that I really would like for you to do if you're considering new construction out here. First and foremost, do not go into a new home without a home inspection. I really just think that it's, even though you do have the warranty, it's still a good idea to be able to bring up items to the builder beforehand, because you might have a little bit more leverage to actually get them to do it in a timely fashion as compared to the otherwise around. I also recommend, because we only have a 1-year warranty out here that covers everything, is to get another home inspection done at 11 months. And the reason I say that is because it gives the house some time to settle. Now, the house is going to continue to settle for about 2 to 5 years, okay, on average. So keep in mind, just because of the way that the warranties are, that 11-month can become critical if things start going off or different things start happening within the house. And that is your last opportunity to create a punch list for them for actual items that need to be fixed. So definitely do both. It's definitely worth the investment. But to basically summarize, as I mentioned, spec homes out here, track homes, if they do have the models available, they all generally build the same. They all generally will build with the same materials. They will build with the materials that will, save them the most money. And again, and you can't blame them because they're in business. That's how they work. But the difference that's going to kind of set across, the track as versus spec, or the builders between themselves, would be like what they're going to put on your exterior, the architecture, the layout, and what they're going to be putting into your house, like the appliances, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really kind of, up to you on the layout, if you come across different materials. But also, keep in mind, if you're going custom and you definitely know what you're doing, say like framing wise, et cetera, you always manipulate your builder to do something different. It will cost you more money in the end, or you could have different products put on the house or in the house. But generally, as you drive around the Treasure Valley and you go to a lot of these new subdivisions that you're seeing built by these major builders out here, you're going to notice that a lot of them generally are using the same stuff that they're going to put on and into your house. The difference will be the quality of how they do it, what they're going to be doing, like, again, what kind of countertops they're using, backsplashes, cabinetry, how much you get in there, the overall layout of the house. But in terms of the bones, the drywall, the foundation, okay, all that, which again, you can expect a raised foundation out here, the majority of the houses. Not saying that you can't find a slab, because there are some that exist, but not as many slabs as raised foundations. I would say it's a 90% to 10% raised foundation curve that you're going to find out here. If you're thinking about a basement and you really want a basement, well, you're going to have to look into an older home, or you would have to talk to a custom builder if you want to go ahead and do that. But again, just reiterating, what really kind of separates the builders is what, especially the spec and the tract builders, is what they put into the house. The other thing that really sets them apart, again, too, is the customer service. We already mentioned that a little bit early in this video, but definitely do your research on their customer service. And don't be surprised if a lot of these builders get slammed, because again, it depends on the homeowner. Again, I mentioned, that I'm a master inspector. I really don't care so much, as compared maybe to somebody else. And don't forget to, I just want to say one more time, don't forget that your one opportunity for cosmetic items is going to be at your new homeowner orientation. So definitely bring a roll of blue tape with you. I know that, for my clients, if you're looking at a new home, I will bring the tape. And I also do have an eye, so I'll go around there and help you out a bit and say, well, hey, take a look at this and take a look at that. And, just again, remember, inspections are critical. And that basically kind of sums it all up. So if you do have any further questions, or maybe even you're in a new home, right now, and you're like, hey, Mike, can I go ahead and pick your master inspector brain? Now, keep in mind, you can go ahead and pick my brain all the live long days. I'm actually not practicing inspections anymore. I still hold the title to my certified master inspector, and that is a lifetime accreditation. It's actually the highest honor that we can earn in our field. And it is through NACHI, okay, which is a very, very respected organization. So I actually will say, if you are looking for an inspector, make sure that you go onto Google, look up certified master inspector, go ahead and click on that link, go ahead and type in, the Boise area, and you'll see the list of 7. And there's probably going to be more, as time goes along. See the list of 7, call them out, feel them out for their prices. But they are literally the most experienced inspectors that we do have here in the Treasure Valley. There are some other good organizations, but anybody that's generally NACHI trained or ASHI trained, which is American Society of Home Inspectors, is going to be generally your best home inspectors out there. And honestly, you can't go wrong with them. And one of the other pieces of advice when I do talk about inspections is you definitely get what you pay for. Just because you found somebody for $150, they're probably going to be fly by night. They're going to go in and out of that house, and they may not even be insured. So that's another thing that you're going to want to check, is to make sure that your inspector carries insurance. It's always a good thing to do, especially E&O insurance, just in case if they happen to miss something, that they have the capability to be able to see what they can do about it. But generally, new construction, even if they were to miss something at, say, the very beginning, before you purchase the house, but another inspector comes in 11 months and finds something else, well, as long as it's in writing before your 1-year warranty is up, then the builder should take care of it and will take care of it, because again, the builder's reputation is on the line if they decide not to. I just want to kind of throw this out to maybe help out the builders a bit and help you kind of understand with repairs too as well, is that the repairs might take a little bit longer than usual nowadays because supply chains are kind of broken, and being able to get, items, say like lumber or anything else, it could be difficult for that builder. So, have some patience with them. If they say it's going to be about 3 weeks out, absolutely believe them, and they'll be on it. So again, just check that customer service track record. But I did recently get a question, that came across somewhere on the internet, where they asked me, they said, are the builders just going to walk out on these items and never take care of them? No, that's not going to happen, because they know that their reputation would extremely suffer if they did something like that. As long as it's a legitimate issue that does need to be fixed, and not something like, say, cosmetic after the fact, like, say, spider cracks, so you can fill in, with some caulking and paint, they'll take care of it. The builders out here have a great reputation, and they have to live by their reputation or they're going to be out of business. So I hope all this helps. Again, if you want to reach out to me, you can get me at 208-715-STAR. That's 208-715-7827. And don't forget to hit on that subscribe button over there. Click on the notification bell. That way you can see all the videos that pop up that I come out with weekly, and kind of keep you in the loop of what's going on here in the Treasure Valley for a variety of different reasons. And again, if you are thinking about relocating here to this area, click in the description below too, and you can see and download my free relocation guide, which will give you all the information that you're looking for before you decide to make that move. Also, I will have some tips in that description below in probably about a couple of weeks, here for you, that if you already do own a new home, it'll kind of let you know just how to maintain your house. And that's really what we all want to know. So either way, thanks again very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Again, I'm Mike Petras, your star realtor. I look forward to the day that I hear from you, and I look forward to the day that I call you my neighbor. God bless you all. Until the next video, talk then. Bye-bye.